Supplement dosing, why is it important to try and understand how supplement manufacturers, and including us, how we dose things and why we choose the doses we choose? There's been a number of research studies lately that have looked at these high dose supplements. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of terminology. So this idea of supplementation, it's a definition of we're adding extra to our dietary choices, meaning supplements add to what we take, dietary supplements. And there's things like functional foods and other avenues in which we can add to our nutritional intake, whether it be vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, herbs, prebiotics, probiotics. These are all considered generally supplements. And yet, each one of these supplements has some relatively, and in fact, what we believe in is they have some really medicinal and therapeutic value above and beyond what you can get from many foods these days. Certainly when it comes to these unique compounds like prebiotics, probiotics, and some of the herbal compounds that we use, they're just not available in the dietary choices we make. Human-based probiotics come from humans, meaning that they're not part of our dietary choices. So these are important. We certainly think they're important in our world, and we know and now have clinical evidence, and we continue to gather that essentially on a daily basis. But the dosing is important because there's this idea that more is better. There's been some studies, you'll see certain studies are done on raw materials or simple formulations. And the reason for that is because you can get a lot more specific data out of that. It doesn't mean it's more important. It just means that if you take a complex formula and you run a clinical study, you may not be able to decide which ingredients in that study had the largest impact. Whereas if you run a single ingredient study like N-acetylcysteine or ginger or a single probiotic strain, you can then understand exactly what that ingredient is doing to a population or to those that are taking it. So it becomes, from a scientific standpoint, a much easier question to ask and answer. So they are important studies and there are important data coming out of these. But when you look at where we want to mimic, so Alimentum Labs and Systemic Formulas wants to be closer to this idea of a whole food type formulation. We use doses that are sometimes larger than any food you can get, but we usually complex that with other ingredients that allow our body to process a single ingredient more efficiently. For example, we're all aware of is if you take vitamin D3, it doesn't behave as well in the body unless you have K2, zinc, magnesium. These other ingredients help your body manage a particular dietary supplement, food, probiotic, prebiotic. Again, all these similar choices are managed better when you understand what it's doing in the body and other players that it interacts with, right? It's a team effort. And the reason I bring it up is because we always look at the bigger picture, metabolically, from the endocrine position, from the neurological position. We want to know that if we're going to high dose something, we're going to give it the factors that allow it to be more natural and not just push a certain mechanism. Push something like, if we take a ton of NAC, it's going to push all the enzymes and all of the uptake proteins that bring it into your body and then process it, and it's going to put a strain on that system unless you provide it with the other tools that allow that strain to be lessened. So the studies that I'm referring to, though, high dose vitamins, oftentimes you'll see where, hey, let's take a gram of a vitamin or even 100 milligrams of a specific vitamin, whether it be thiamine or thiamine derivative. The most recent one was pyridoxine. If you're taking high dose pyridoxine, there were actually poor outcomes. It causes neurological issues. And that kind of leads to this idea that when you push a single compound, this is what's called a nutraceutical. And that terminology might sound familiar to a pharmaceutical. Nutraceuticals are very powerful, and if you push a mechanism or a part of your body with a nutraceutical, you do run the risk of actually impacting other secondary or adjacent mechanisms in your body that could not be beneficial. So when we look at nutraceuticals, we look at them as a short-term solution, something to just increase the levels of that compound in your body, but then you want to get back to natural supplementing levels. And of course, you want to have additional players there. So really, long story short, the way we formulate is to not only maybe push certain things into your body to bring these levels up, to bring up good microbes, to bring up healthy levels of vitamins or minerals, but we do it in a way where we have the other cofactors, and then we also do it in a way where you can have the short-term approach and the long-term approach. And that can be based on a number of factors like how you're responding, symptoms, your genetics, your microbiome. These are the considerations we do at Alimentum and Systemic. And I wanted to point that out because at large in this industry, there's a lot of excitement around pushing these things with single ingredient formulas. And yet it's not really getting at the greater picture of moving towards the entire system, as the body as a whole. It's pushing a biochemical pathway. Just be aware of that. Time and a place, but really the journey needs to be something that you're bringing in all of these things that work together, not just usually single things. Thanks for joining me, and click below to follow us more. Bye.